Now, a few months ago, someone asked me about a book to use with water-soluble coloured pencils, and at the time, I had just gone out of my mind that I had this book. It was packed away in a box. It's a very old book, and so I do apologise when I sent you off to look at various different YouTube channels. But I've recently been unpacking my old boxes of books, the ones that I don't have room for on my bookshelf and the ones I don't really use anymore, and I suddenly found this book and I was very sad I'd forgotten to mention it, because it had such a significant part in my art journey where I'd had a gap in creating art and I was just starting out again. So I was in a situation with virtually no money. I was scrimping and saving. I didn't have any money for any luxury items. I wasn't going out. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't buy clothes. But every week I would go into the little second-hand bookshop near me and look for some cheap paperbacks to read. I did used to use a library a lot as well. But here I suddenly found this one day. I found this book on the shelf. It had just been put on the shelf, and at the time it was only maybe a year or two old, and I really loved the vibrant colour. The funny thing was I didn't even have any water-soluble coloured pencils, but I really loved this book and I spent a while looking through it. And then I went outside and sat on a bench and worked out, can I actually afford this? Because it was a little bit expensive even back then, but I think it was in perfect condition. It's got a little bit battered over the years. So I did go and buy this book, and for a long time I was constantly reading this book and thinking about the way that you could use coloured pencils. So let me just tell you a bit about the book anyway. It's Painting with Water-Soluble Coloured Pencils by Greene. It's featuring 18 step-by-step demonstrations, and it was originally published as a hardback in 1999, and this softback edition was published in 2002, and it has 128 pages, and it was published by Northlight Books. You might be able to see here in pencil, let's see down here, it says £4.95. Now that was a lot of money to me back then in 2003, and I think it was 2003 because the book was very new at the time. But anyway, this was the start of me recollecting art books, because I didn't have that many at the time. I did have lots of craft books and sewing books, but this was really the beginning of my sort of, what shall I say, my addiction to collecting art books. Anyway, let's have a look at the book. We've got here the table of contents, materials and tools, techniques and demonstrations. Now, something I really like in Gary's books, I've got since bought another 2 of Gary's books. He talks here about different brands of water-soluble pencil, and then we've got these colour charts of several different brands of pencil for you, which is really, really helpful. Then we've got the paper surfaces, the brushes and applicators, all the different tools you'll need. And then we move on to techniques. So we've got wet on dry, we've got wet on wet technique. Several different demonstrations there. So a dry on wet, dry on dry, and then we've got combining water-soluble pencil techniques, combining different types of pencil, masking, and then again this lovely vibrant picture which really stood out on the front cover. I hadn't really seen anything like that in coloured pencil. I hadn't really thought about using coloured pencils that much. They were just something I'd use for doodling. So here we have another demonstration here, some matchsticks, seashells, and I think the variety of subjects in here, it seemed to me like this was a good book to start out with water-soluble coloured pencils, because you had such a variety of subjects. At the time, I didn't know who Gary Greene was. I had no idea. We didn't have internet or anything. And so all I had was the library and the local bookshop. And it's a thank you to whoever handed this book in, because I really loved looking at it so much. And because of this book, I did get water-soluble coloured pencils eventually, and I very much enjoyed using this book. And you can see all these lovely, lovely illustrations. And because of this book, I went on and bought another 2 of Gary Greene's books. So if you are looking for a book on water-soluble coloured pencils, I do think this is probably the best one I've seen. I haven't really seen many. There's a couple of very small books around, and there's the back cover. So that is a nice book. I think that is a really lovely book. I think the flowers are especially lovely in this book. So I don't know how I managed to forget this, but I think where it's been packed in a box for 4 years, very sad, it's coming back out and it's going on my shelf with my other Gary Greene books. And again, apologies to the person who asked me. Maybe you're watching this and you'll see this book now.